The book of Revelation was written by John, one of Jesus' followers, while he was exiled on the island of Patmos, a small and desolate island in the Aegean Sea. There alone, far from everything and everyone, he received a vision that would forever change the way the world views the future. John described his revelations as a series of overwhelming visions, filled with vivid imagery and mysterious symbols. He speaks of a throne surrounded by angelic creatures, a sealed book with 7 seals, and a lamb who holds the key to unlock these secrets. These visions were not just figures of speech, but divine messages about what was to come for humanity and the universe. Imagine yourself in John's place, contemplating the infinite horizon when suddenly the world around you transforms. The sky opens, trumpets echo, and he finds himself before a succession of frightening events. There, in the solitude of that island, he was chosen to witness occurrences that most of us would not dare to imagine. But John knew that these revelations were not meant to be kept secret. He recorded them, perhaps with trembling hands, every detail, every word that was spoken to him, so that we, centuries later, could prepare for what he called the end of times. Revelation is not just a vision of destruction, but also a window into a cosmic battle between forces far beyond our comprehension. Why was he chosen? And why these specific visions? No one knows for sure, but what is clear is that John had a mission: to bring to light secrets that would challenge future generations and leave us questioning whether we are truly ready for what the apocalypse describes. From here, the doors to the prophecies open. What awaits us is a dark journey filled with mysteries. The next steps will reveal, one by one, the events that, according to John's visions, will define the fate of the world. The prophecies of Revelation are like pieces of a dark puzzle, each warning us about what may happen when the balance of the world is destroyed. One of these terrifying pieces is the arrival of the Four Horsemen, an iconic moment that represents the manifestation of powerful and relentless forces. These horsemen are not merely warriors. They are symbols of disasters that will strike the world. Each carries a unique mission, and together they represent a set of threats that will shake the foundations of humanity. The first horseman, riding a white horse, carries a bow and wears a crown. He is seen as the conqueror, representing victory, but a dark victory laden with oppression. Perhaps he symbolizes wars fought for power and control, dominating peoples and nations under the guise of a false peace. Right behind him comes the horseman on the red horse, wielding a sword and representing war in its most brutal form. He is the embodiment of conflict and violence, spreading chaos wherever he goes. This horseman reminds us of all the wars that have devastated civilizations, but he also warns of future conflicts, perhaps even more brutal than we can imagine. The third horseman rides a black horse, holding a set of scales in his hands. He represents hunger, rationing, and scarcity. His presence reminds us of how fragile the world can be in the face of resource shortages and the injustice of food distribution. As he passes, he leaves a sense of despair, of empty stomachs, and an unrelenting search for sustenance. Lastly, there emerges the pale horseman, who sends chills down our spines at the mere sight of him. He is death, and hell follows close behind. With him comes the shadow of plague and all diseases that spread like uncontrolled fire. This horseman does not discriminate. His touch is fatal to all, regardless of who they are. These four horsemen carry the warning that the world will face challenges beyond our understanding. They represent forces that can destroy what we know and force us to confront our deepest fears. Together, they form one of the most terrifying aspects of the apocalypse, a prophecy of destruction that leads us to question: do we have the strength to survive these challenges when they arrive? After the passage of the horsemen, the world is forever changed. Yet, the apocalypse reserves even more disasters that challenge the imagination. One of the prophecies that follows is the announcement of a great earthquake, accompanied by natural catastrophes that shake not only the earth, but the very heavens. John describes how the sun turns black as sackcloth, and the moon becomes like blood. The stars fall from the sky like ripe figs shaken by a storm. Mountains and islands are moved from their places, as if the very planet were being stirred. It is a vision of pure desolation, where nature rises up against humanity. Imagine, for a moment, an earthquake so powerful that it topples entire cities while colossal tsunamis engulf everything in their path. The air thickens with smoke, and the sky is filled with clouds of ash and fire. There is nowhere to hide. The ground trembles like never before, as if it were disintegrating before our eyes. But this prophecy is not merely about a literal earthquake. It represents the collapse of everything we hold familiar. John shows us that when the end approaches, even the most stable and immutable forces become unstable. The foundations of the world are shaken, forcing us to confront the chaos that may be lying dormant, ready to awaken at any moment. As people desperately seek refuge, they realize that there is no safe place. It is as if nature itself is returning everything humanity has done to it, demanding a steep price. These disasters serve as a reminder of how small and fragile we are in the face of the immense power of creation. In this scene of complete destruction, the haunting question remains: what is left after the devastation? Can the world, as we know it, be rebuilt, or will everything be reduced to rubble and ash? After the natural chaos, John's visions lead us to a scene of moral and spiritual decay with the fall of Babylon the Great. This symbol represents rampant corruption, materialism, and unrestrained lust. Babylon, according to John, is a city that thrives on excess, serving as the source of all perversion, corrupting nations and leaders with its promises of fleeting riches and pleasures. In Revelation, the destruction of Babylon the Great is depicted with powerful imagery. Fire consumes its towers, its streets become desolate, and the echoes of parties and celebrations turn into absolute silence. Once seen as invincible, it falls suddenly and irreversibly, while kings and merchants who once profited from its luxury watch in astonishment and terror as it collapses. The cries of pain and regret resonate throughout the city as it burns. The wealth it amassed is reduced to nothing, and its power dissipates like dust in the wind. It represents not only a city, but an entire system of distorted values that, according to John's visions, has no place in the coming world. For those watching it crumble, Babylon serves as a reminder that the blind pursuit of pleasure and power leads nowhere. It is a path of self-destruction. It falls so that others may learn that nothing built on greed and corruption can endure. John shows us that as the end approaches, what is superficial and illusory dissolves, revealing the true emptiness behind a shiny facade. The fall of Babylon the Great is not merely the end of a city, but the collapse of everything it represents. Amidst these ashes, a reflection arises. When all that is corrupt is destroyed, what will remain? Will we be ready to abandon the vices and illusions that it personifies, or will we be consumed along with it? As the scene of destruction unfolds, a new prophecy emerges, laden with mystery and fear: the mark of the beast. John speaks of a symbol, a mark that will be placed on the right hand or forehead of individuals, without which no one will be able to buy or sell. This mark is more than just a simple emblem. It represents loyalty, control, and submission. Those who receive the mark belong to a system of domination where individual freedom disappears, replaced by blind obedience. The mark of the beast is not merely a tool for commerce. It is a symbol of total conformity to a dark power that seeks to govern every facet of life. It is the pinnacle of relentless control, where any resistance is crushed, and those who refuse to accept it are ostracized, persecuted, and even eliminated. Whispers circulate about the number 666, attributed to the beast, a code that has become a symbol of absolute evil. John warns us that this mark is more than a physical seal. It represents a choice, an allegiance that compromises not only the body but the soul. Those who accept it relinquish their independence, becoming part of a system where all are controlled by a sinister entity demanding total obedience. Imagine living in a world where your actions are monitored, where every decision you make is tied to this signal. Without it, you are an outcast, someone who cannot even secure daily bread. With it, you become part of something greater, but at the cost of your very essence. The mark of the beast represents the zenith of a society where free choices are eradicated, leaving only silent and total submission. This prophecy challenges us to reflect on what it means to be free, on the price we are willing to pay for comfort and security. In the face of a society molded by the beast, the question becomes even more urgent. How far would we go to maintain our place in the world? Will we be able to resist, even if it means walking a lonely and dangerous path? With the mark of submission spreading across the world, divine wrath approaches in all its intensity. In his vision, John sees 7 angels holding bowls filled with God's fury, each destined to pour out punishments upon the earth. These bowls symbolize the final judgment, a series of calamities that come in response to the corruption, violence, and wickedness that have taken over the world. The first angel pours out his bowl, and a terrible plague covers those who bear the mark of the beast, serving as a grim reminder that no one will escape unscathed. The second angel pours out his bowl, turning the seas into blood, killing everything that lives in the waters, and leaving the ocean a scene of death and decay. The third angel does the same with the springs and rivers, making it impossible to find clean water, transforming this vital element into a symbol of suffering. As the bowls are poured out, the world is engulfed in increasingly devastating calamities. The sun, with the fourth bowl, burns with unbearable heat, scorching the skin of men and leaving the sky tinged with a cruel red light. Even in the face of this suffering, many refuse to repent, cursing the heavens, unaware that their very act of blasphemy binds them to destruction. With the fifth bowl, darkness falls upon the kingdom of the beast, plunging everything into gloom, as if the world itself is in mourning. Then comes the sixth bowl, which dries up the great Euphrates River, preparing the way for the final battle. And at last, the seventh bowl is poured out, and a thunderous roar rends the sky, bringing forth an earthquake so violent that cities crumble, and islands and mountains vanish into the sea. These bowls are more than mere disasters. They represent a reckoning, a point of no return where all transgressions are paid for. Each drop spilled carries a weight that echoes in the hearts of men, reminding them that every action has consequences and that justice, though delayed, always arrives. The bowls are a promise that evil will not go unpunished. Yet, amidst this whirlwind of chaos and judgment, the question lingers: is there still time for redemption? Or will it be that once the last bowl is poured, all will be lost forever? With the bowls of wrath already poured out, John's visions now lead us to the most anticipated and feared moment of all, the end of time and the second coming. He describes how the heavens open, and a rider appears on a white horse, one who is called Faithful and True. His eyes are like flames, and on his head are many crowns. He is the bearer of ultimate justice, the final judgment that will forever separate good from evil. This rider, believed by many to be Christ himself, comes to lead a heavenly army in a final battle against the forces of darkness. This battle will not be a common dispute. It is the ultimate confrontation between good and evil, where the fate of all creation will be decided. Under his command, angelic forces descend from the heavens, ready to confront the hosts of the beast and all those who allied with her. The trumpets sound, and the heavens and the earth fill with the sound of battle echoing throughout every corner of the universe. It is a moment of extreme tension, where every being, living or dead, feels the approach of an inescapable conclusion. The followers of the beast, in a last act of desperation, try to resist, but the power descending from heaven is unmatched, irresistible. In this moment, all that is false, corrupt, and wicked is exposed and destroyed. Those who remained faithful find hope and salvation, but for the rest, only judgment and condemnation await. John speaks of a lake of fire, where evil will be cast forever, a final destiny that seals the complete and irreversible separation between good and evil. It is the climax of a cosmic story where, at last, light triumphs over darkness. Yet even in the face of this victory, John's vision reminds us that the path to redemption is not easy. For some, it is a promise of a new beginning. For others, the sound of the trumpet is the final call, with no chance of return. And so, with the rider's victory, the world as we know it comes to an end. But what comes next? Is this the beginning of a new era or the end of everything that has ever existed? John leaves us with a glimpse of hope, suggesting that perhaps, after purification, a new world may arise, where peace and justice finally prevail. With evil defeated and the ancient world dissolved, John reveals the emergence of a new heaven and a new earth. He describes a magnificent vision of renewal, where there is no more pain, tears, or suffering. In this new world, death is a thing of the past, and all that is corruptible has been left behind. It is the promise of a fresh start, where humanity can finally live in harmony. At the center of this new creation, John sees the New Jerusalem, a celestial city descending from heaven like a bride adorned for her husband. It shines with the glory of God, radiating a light more intense than the sun, with walls of jasper and streets of pure gold. In this city, there is no need for a temple, for the Lord himself is its sanctuary, and his presence illuminates every corner. There is no night there, and the gates are always open, for there is nothing to fear, nothing to hide. The New Jerusalem is a symbol of peace and perfection, a place where nations will gather and where justice will finally prevail. The river of life flows through the city, and on its banks grow trees that bear fruit every month, whose leaves are for the healing of the nations. It is the fulfillment of a promise of healing and reconciliation, where all wounds will be healed and all hearts will find rest. In this new world, John describes a state of unity between God and his people. He speaks of a time when there will be no more separation, where God will be all in all, and each being will live in perfect communion with the Creator. It is complete restoration, not only of what was lost, but of a future greater than we could ever imagine. As he contemplates this vision, there is a sense of fullness and peace that transcends all the struggles and sufferings of the past. This is the final destiny for those who have persevered, a place where love and joy are eternal, and where evil can never infiltrate again. John leaves us with the hope that, in the end, there is light, a place of serenity and purpose, where redemption is complete and everlasting. In this renewed world, there is finally rest for all who have walked this path of prophecies and challenges. John's vision shows us that beyond destruction and judgment, there is a higher purpose, a promise of renewal and hope for all who seek the truth. As John contemplates the New Jerusalem and the splendor of the new heaven and the new earth, he hears a powerful voice proclaiming, "Behold, I make all things new." This declaration echoes throughout the cosmos, a call to humanity to understand the magnitude of this rebirth. It is a decisive moment, where everything old is left behind and every scar is healed. In this new state of existence, there is no longer any place for suffering. The memories of wars, tragedies, and injustices become mere shadows of a distant past. Instead, love and compassion permeate every interaction, creating bonds that can never be broken. Pain and fear have dissipated, and the joy that once seemed unattainable is now the norm. Hearts are filled with hope, for those who stood firm in faith now receive the reward of eternal life in harmony. The inhabitants of the New Jerusalem walk in unity, without distinctions or divisions, recognizing themselves as part of one great family. The diversity that once sparked conflict is now celebrated as the beauty of creation. All share a common purpose: to live in worship and gratitude, honoring the Creator who gave them life and brought them to this glorious destiny. John observes that God's call to humanity has never been merely about obedience, but about relationship. The true essence of this new world is the intimate communion between the Creator and his creatures. It is the fulfillment of the promise that God will dwell among men, and they will be his people, and he will be their God. There is no need for mediators or temples, for each person has direct access to his presence. As he contemplates this reality, John feels a wave of peace washing over his soul. The urgency to live a meaningful life becomes clear, for each day is a gift. Life in the New Jerusalem is an opportunity to express gratitude, serve one another, and grow in love and understanding. Ultimately, John reminds us that the choice is in our hands. The path may be challenging, filled with temptations and trials, but the vision he shares serves as a reminder that hope is always in sight. What is to come is greater than any struggle we may face. And so, with these words of hope and promise, John concludes his vision, inviting each of us to reflect on the journey and consider what our choice will be in the face of the apocalypse.